number 18. Okay. What is the equation of a line parallel to 3x plus 5y equals 50, and it goes through this point? All right, let's get into it. Don't forget to label your points, x1, y1. And look at this. This is in standard form. I'm going to use this to help me out. Okay, so don't forget, from that parallel and perpendicular equations worksheet, the first thing you have to do when you're trying to find a parallel or perpendicular line is, sorry for the noise, is to find the slope. So I'm going to zoom in because I don't have a lot of space here. All right, so the slope. Now, normally we would do like rise over run, y2 minus y1 over x, all that stuff. But we don't have a y2 or a y1. We don't have a graph. So we're going to have to use negative a over b because we have a standard form equation, and that's all we have. Sometimes it b's like that. All right, I'm just going to use a different color. All right, so m equals negative a over b. All right, so now we need to figure out what is a and what is b. So let's come over here. A is 3, B is 5. So, and it's positive 5, that's why I included that plus sign in front of it. So A is 3, B is 5. And we don't need to do anything else to this fraction. There's no double negative, we can't simplify it, it's already in simplest form. All right, moving on to point slope form. So after you find the slope, you need to use point slope form to plug things in. Equals m times x minus x1. And now we are going to erase and replace. All right, so y1 is 6. We just found the slope, which was negative 3/5. And y2, no, just kidding, x1 is negative 15. Okay, there we go. All right, so now let's clean this up. I see a double negative, and so this is going to be y minus 6 equals negative 3/5 times x plus 15. And honestly, we're done. Okay, but Ms., why do we do all that extra work on the worksheet? Because it told us that we need to change it to slope-intercept form. Does this question tell you that you need to change it to slope-intercept form? It just says what is the equation. It doesn't tell us what type of equation, so if you don't have to do extra work, then don't. Number 19, same thing. Moving on. So you can do number 19 on your own. It's just like number 18. Okay, number 20, what's the equation of a line? Okay, this one is specific. It says specifically slope-intercept form. All right, and it goes through this point, and this point. So let's go ahead and do what we do. All right, so of course this is x1, zoom in, there we go. x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, so now let me see what else we got. That's all we have. So now, we need to find the slope first. So as always, we need to figure out how to find the slope. So clearly we can't use negative a over b because there's no a or b anywhere in this problem. We only have y2 and all that other stuff. So guess what? That's what we're going to use. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, now I'm going to erase and replace. Okie dokie, so the first thing I'm going to get rid of is y2, and I'm going to replace it with, what was that, negative 5, since y2 is negative 5, according to how I labeled it. y1 is 11. x2 is 3, and x1 is negative 1. All right, now that I have everything in place, I'm going to clean this up. In your calculator, let me write this down here. So in your calculator, to do this, you can just type negative 5 minus 11. It's really easy. And then that should give you negative 16. Okay. Then for the bottom, you can type 3 plus 1, right? Because that's a double negative right there. And that's just going to be 4. All right, so let me go back over here. So again, that's going to be negative 16. and that's a double negative, so that's just 3 plus 1, which is 4. All right, so now I have negative 16 over 4. So if you were to type that into your calculator, let's just say you're not very good at fractions and you need some help. So now you need to type that in your calculator. So you would just type negative 16 divided by 4. A fraction is just fancy division, fancy looking division. Anyway, you should get negative 4. No fraction, no decimal. As long as you don't have a decimal, you're fine. Even if you did have a decimal, I will still accept the decimal for slope. All right, so that's negative 4. And that is the slope. So we did all that junk for the slope. Now we need to put it into point slope form. Yeah, use a different color. All right, so point slope form, you already know, we've done this like a gajillion times. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. If you haven't memorized it by now, what are you even doing with your life? But even if you haven't, you have plenty of notes. I'm sure you've screenshotted or written this down at least once, so make sure you have it on you when you're doing your test. All right, I'm just gonna get rid of all these things at once because they get annoying. Oops, let's go for a smaller eraser. There we go. All right, so now I'm gonna plug in y1, which was 11, x1, which was negative 1, and the slope, which was negative 4. Okay. So, as always, let me get rid of those double negatives, and I need to distribute. Negative 4 times x is just negative 4x, of course. Negative 4 times positive 1 is just negative 4. All right, and then we have y minus 11 over here, of course. Last step is that we need to add 11 to both sides, right? Because we always have to do the opposite of what's happening to the y. And then that's going to leave us with y equals negative 4x. In your calculator, you would type negative 4 plus 11. So that would be negative 4 plus 11, which equals 7. All right, so that's just going to equal 7, positive 7. And that is that. We're done. So it's in slope-intercept form, so we did our job. That's that. All right, number 21 is the same as number 20, so you can do that on your own. Number 22, now we're going to do one that's perpendicular. Okay, so we need perpendicular. Here's the equation. Here's the point. Let's label. So this is going to be your ax plus by equals c. So that means a is 5. B is 4. We're going to need that a little bit later. And this is your x1 and your y1. Since we only have 1 point, we have to use negative a over b for slope, of course, because that's in standard form. All right, so let's go ahead and get this party started. So to find slope, we're going to have to use this method because we have a standard form equation. And now I'm going to plug in 5 for A and 4 for B, just like we discussed a few seconds ago. Okay, so now that I figured out that my slope is negative 5 over 4, I need to remember something. This is asking for perpendicular line, a perpendicular line. So we don't stop there, we have to find the perpendicular slope, which means we have to flip and change. And actually, let me do this in a different color. We need to flip and change. So the perpendicular slope, we flipped the 4 and the 5, and it was a negative fraction, so now it's a positive fraction. That's the fraction that we need to use. Okay, I'm going to put a little fluffy cloud around it. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to use my slope-intercept form. I wonder if it's still saved here. Yes, it is. All right, so now I'm going to erase the 3 things I'm about to replace. Okay, so let me scroll up a little so I can see. Y1 is negative 17. M, of course, is 4/5. And x1 is negative 25. All right, now that I've put that together, let me clean this up a little bit before I go on, just because we have 2 sets of double negatives. Okay, so I changed my double negatives to plus plus. All right, now I'm going to distribute this 4/5. So that's going to be 4/5 x. And then 4/5 times 25. Okay, again, to use your calculator, oops, wrong color. To use your calculator, let me write this at the bottom to help you out. So in your calculator, you would write 4, divided by 5 times 25. Since everything's positive, we're good to go. And you should get 20. If you don't, try again. All right. So, wrong color, that's going to be plus 20. All right. On the other side of this equation, of course, we just have y plus 17. Okay, last step, of course, we need to get rid of that 17 by subtracting it. And then that's going to leave us with y equals 4/5 x plus 3. And that is it. It's in slope-intercept form. All right, and to be honest, I could have stopped at this, okay? But I just kept going, I'm sorry. But yeah, you could have stopped there. If you look at the answer choices and they're in point-slope form, stop at point-slope form like I did on that other problem. All right, 23 is just like this one. Number 24, indicate whether they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. All right, let's take a look. The first equation here is in slope-intercept form, so let me write that form underneath it, and then I can easily tell what the slope is. To detect if it's parallel or perpendicular, you have to know what the slope is. So m equals -5. All right, so let's check out the second one. This one is obviously in point-slope form, so let me write that underneath it. All right, so you can obviously see that 1/5 is the slope. All right, now let's take a look at the slopes and see if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Don't forget, parallel are equal, perpendicular you change and flip, or flip and change. All right, and then neither would just be neither. So if I look here, this -5, it's not even a fraction. So some of you might be like, oh, that's neither. Well, don't be so hasty. -5/1 equals -5. It's the same thing. Think back to middle school when you learned that just put a integer over 1 to make it look like a fraction. And now you can easily see that these two are negative reciprocals. They flipped, and one is negative and one is positive. Therefore, this is perpendicular. All right. No, wait, that's not what I meant. That's what I meant. There we go. Okay, next we have number 25. Same situation, different problem. So this is obviously in slope-intercept form, excuse me. All right, so that means this has to be the slope, so that's -2/3. All right, the second one, this one is in standard form. So this one's gonna be a little bit, I'm gonna need more steps to figure out the slope on this one. I can't just look and tell. I have to use, the -a/b. That's the downside to standard form. You have to do a little bit of extra work to figure out what the slope is. But that's okay, just 1 or 2 steps. So again, I plug in the 2 and the 3 and I get -2/3. These are obviously equal, which means they are parallel, because parallel lines have equal slopes. Okay, 26. Indicate, blah, blah, blah. You can read. Okay. So for this guy, this is obviously a point slope form. So that's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. All right, so this is clearly my slope, -3/8. This one is in standard form, so let me write standard form underneath it. And again, I can't just look and tell. I have to do that extra step of -a/b. So that's going to be -3/11, right? So because a is 3 and b is -11. And then that's just going to be 3/11 because it's a double negative. Boom, boom. So 3/11. Okay, obviously these are not the same. Even if they flip, they're not the same. So this is neither. Exclamation point. All right, last but not least. Okay, number 27, we're just matching. This is obviously the slope formula. Okay, this is point slope form. Why did I do that? This is standard form, and this is slope-intercept form. And thus concludes this review. Godspeed.